start off with an intro. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for choosing this presentation, and I hope that you don't fall asleep. My name is Carlos Fernandez, and in my free time, I try to reach forbidden areas, secret places in video gaming. I would like to share with you the techniques that I use to reach those secret places, and I hope that you like my presentation. At this point in time, I work in the quantum physics department of IBM. So I work remotely because the full team is in Iowa, but for the last 15 years, I've been in the world of video gaming, and it's one of my top hobbies. I would like to start off with these images from The Lord of the Rings, from the Ring community. It was the first movie. It was a trilogy, and you know from that image that The Lord of the Rings won an Oscar to the best filmmaking. So the other movies also won many Oscars, but this one won that filmmaking because of the surrounding environment that engages you that much. I'm very much of a fan of the Lord of the Rings, and actually every night before I go down to I fall asleep, I read a chapter of the Lord of the Rings. And once I was reading about his story. They are the wizards. Actually, the author said that they were like angels. So the best known is Gandalf, but two of them went to the mid-land, they went to the east, and we just don't know that they did not complete the mission of helping out the Midland. And then Radagast, another of these angels, but Radagast was a bit of a loony, and he let himself being cheated, so he did not contribute that much to the mission. And then Gandalf died and then came back to life as Gandalf White. And he came back to life because he was the only angel that could help maintain the community united. When I was reading about his stories and the like, I came across this paragraph. And something is being told about Gandalf here. It's said that for Gandalf, it was important to walk unseen through the elves and the humans so that he could learn from their customs and habits. And to me, this thing about walking unseen was very impressive to me, because sometimes when I explore video gaming, I need to change without being unseen, because when you are in the city, you are surrounded by players, you just want to be unnoticed, you just don't want to be unseen. So for instance, if you are in a high place and the other players can see you, I cannot go ahead with my exploration. So this concept of walking unseen stayed in my mind for a long time. I went round and round to find out a way to do that in gaming. And this is the way I define myself. This is a JavaScript memory structure, which is an object where we have this memory structure, and then we have the position for static memory, resolving later on the dynamic one. We have no clip and the ground levels. And X and Y and Z are the values that I find in a specific memory of a structure. I gain access through JavaScript, and then I found the no clip and the ground level. No clip means like no clipping, like no collision. So what do you mean? If you don't collide, you can go through the walls, but if you don't collide with the ground, you will fall in the vacuum. So having no active clip could be a bit dangerous, because you may go down to the bottom and you may die. And then you have the ground level. Well, this is reverse engineering. I have to suggest the names of things. I don't know what it says in the source code, but I refer to it as the ground level. So I have a key when I strike it. So the character kind of changes his ground level, that is to say, the level on the ground. The character follows the geometry of the ground. So if the ground goes down, the character goes down, but he doesn't fall. He does not get detached from the ground. So when I could see that he was walking, but he was being unseen. So I'm walking, but no one can see me. Then I said, well, it is a good starting point to explore on that. I will take this technique to places, and you will see what I have found. So you can see that the character is walking on the walls. I changed the way the slope has an impact, so therefore he can walk on the walls and on the slopes. You see that sometimes the character kind of gets stuck there. There is kind of an invisible wall. To go through it, I activate the no clip, and then I jump in the air, and then after going over the wall, then I deactivate it. So I'm jumping in the air, I'm going over that invisible wall, and then I cross to the other side. And when I saw that, I said, why is there an invisible wall? I explored this game for a long time and never found invisible walls preventing me from reaching my destination. Then I continued waiting, and if you continue climbing up the mountain, there is like this black mark. Then you go down through the ground level. There are many rocks around. Nothing looks very relevant, but as you keep going down, notice what you find. You find a room, kind of a room. There is no name to it. When you're walking, it doesn't tell you are in this place. So let us refer to it as the fire room. And when I found this, and I said, well, I'll take a look and see what's in there. I could find a number of characters that are all linked to each other. And there is an element in the center, like this drum, that you can play with it, you can interact with it. So those characters actually are not part of the game, or this is my feeling. So this is a seasonal game, so meaning that every time there is a new season, new content is added. So the content may be an extension or not, maybe a plugin or not. And I feel that it created this fire room and did not complete it, did not fully finish it. That was from a old season. Actually, I found this game in 2012, a long time ago. But I know that this fire room is not used, because when you are in it, the chamber, there are some kind of transparencies around. So therefore, the room is not fully finished, and you cannot really reach it unless you use this technique. And then you have this drum right in the center. When you reach it, without even touching it, just by coming close to it, you see that this load screen, so the character is teletransported, in this case, to the middle of the countryside. So like following no criterion whatsoever. The person is teletransported here, and then in this mountain, that's where this fire room is hidden. So you see that through this invisible screen that prevents you from reaching there. I continued exploring through these techniques. Sometimes you find random things. Once I found this typical plate with bread, I found it underground, sliced bread. I was walking and very far away, like if it had been forgotten or if they have changed, I don't know, one of the coordinates. I could see like small thing. I came close and I found this. This happens oftentimes to me. Therefore, I wanted to continue with this theory of walking and seeing, and I tried to find other methods for other video games. World of Craft. So these are NPCs. These are the elements that are delivered by the server. They are placed in specific places. You may interact with some of them. You may not interact with others. And I thought whether I could control an NPC or not, because I realized that in this game there is a class, a group of hunters. They have pets, and hunters can control their pets. And then this told me, well, this game has a mechanism that allows you to control something which is not your actual character. In this case, it's the pet. And I said, well, because we have data underlying the background, I would try to use that mechanism to control, in this case, an NPC. And notice this, we have this label here on the left. And every time I click on a character, NPC, online game, mirrors, you name it, this ID changes. This is the unique ID for that NPC or for that actual character. So therefore, it is not difficult to conclude that NPC or any element delivered by the server is identified with this unique identifier that we may extract. Every time I click on it, I know whom I am selecting. With this in mind, this is the theory. How to hijack, how to take over NPC or control any character in the game. There are several steps to follow, the first one being an object manager. So when we made the reversing, many references are made to object manager. So therefore, we know that this is a linked list. Each of the elements in the list is linked through an object to the next object. So if you go through all the lists, you will go through all the NPC characters delivered by the server, and then you will see the memory addresses of them, because all the assets are pointing at it in a linked manner. So we may have trees, online gamers, and then every element is different. Okay, every character may be an NPC or other. And then we iterate on it, and then we have to make two changes. First of all, we have to change the character that we are controlling. We do reverse engineering, we make reverse engineering, and we invoke, and then we control the character, and we also control the camera, because we want the camera to follow the new character. So this is a video. You see on top a coordinate vector for X and Y, and then the two changes that we have to make to the identifier. I do that on JavaScript. So this is the way I execute it, and when I launch the script, I am controlling the horse, which is an NPC, and then I go and say, Palomino, you are free, no longer on the leash, and now you can see how the identifiers have changed. But actually, I'm being followed by the wolf. The wolf feels that the horse is his owner because this is the character that I'm controlling, and that's the reason why the wolf is after the horse. This may sound nonsense, but this is very relevant, and I'll tell you later on why this is so relevant. And then I continue exploring, and I say, okay, I'll work with another NPC, and I noticed that NPC can walk on the walls without me making any changes. And I guess that this is to prevent any further problems, and I say, wonderful, if they can walk on walls, I will continue exploring like that. But then I noticed that as the character was moving away and away, so it came back to being the original character. So when an NPC got away, well, my character, my server delivers NPC on within a specific radius. So when the NPC goes outside that radius, I lose control, and then it falls back on the original character. And then I say, oh, that's bad. It could walk on walls, but my character had to be close to a specific radio, and in some places there are no NPCs, etc. And then I realized that the key here is not controlling any NPC, but the key here is controlling the pet, because the pet does not disappear. If we make the change and we control the pet, and we make the change in the memory, now I can control the wolf. I'm very far away from the character because I can walk on walls. I go up the mountain. World of Warcraft. Jerez said, okay, let us create these graphs. So now we never know whether the wolf has died or not. So the key here is getting control of the pet, and this will allow us to travel the world. And what happens if we come across online gamers? Well, this also works. We are controlling a character of a gamer playing from home. But this is very curious. If the character stands still, sits still, no problem. However, if the gamer at home moves the character, in my screen I start to see some kind of blinking. But if the character would not be moving, we could control it. However, they will disappear as they would move away. And now I'd like to share the following with you. This that I've just told you, you make changes through, making changes in the memory of JavaScript. So this is a very old technique that we used to use in 2006. So we refer to it as world walking. So this is a technique that was fixed in patch 1.9, and up until then we've been using this technique. This is to say that the character is walking on the walls, but only walking, not running. If the character were to run, it will fall down the mountain. So we just place ourselves in the point in the mountain, and we were just controlling it with the mouse, and we were just walking the character across the mountain. Now I am moving to event storm from humans, and this version, this long version, when you took a look from the top, you could see that there were no buildings, so the city was kind of half broken. The storm city, if we were in it, we would see it nicely, but if you take a look at it from the outside, it looks broken. And then Orvima city, which is the city of the authors, there was another place where we did the world walking, and then what we just got was this message, this pop-up message. You are in the Great Sea and used. You are at the Great Sea and used. Well, there are different things here. It tells us that we are in the sea, and then it tells us that we are in an unused area. So the game has been distributed in an unused area, and then if we find the triggers, we will get these messages. The Great Sea is a random place, This is where this territory existed. This is a small map, a representation of the minimap of one of the first versions of the World of Warcraft. So we have the Azeroth continent, more or less in the center, and top right and top left, we have a number of places. There are some blocks on left and right. Azeroth continent in the first versions was as follows. So this is the island of the programmers. Programmers created an island for themselves. We just didn't know why they did it, but we found out only 2 months ago. For many, many years, we didn't have that information. Well, 2 months ago, one of the authors or the creators published a book about how they made the first version. And he talks about that. He said that programmers wanted to do testing. If they used to make those tests in the Azeroth continent, sometimes they tested, the tests would fail, and then they decided to create an island for themselves. They had triggers, they used to make their tests there, and then in the introduction before, you saw a text, which is now showing on the screen. Joe is my love monkey. We didn't know what it meant up until the book was published. He told us that they had a programmer. This was an internal joke. And then they decided, well, the programmer left it there and continues to be written there. That was the island of the programmers, but they also had another island on the top right corner. It is the island for designers. Designer did the design tests there, different textures, different everything. And they inserted, or they placed this object, this model, which is a very interesting model. This model does not follow or respect the proportion of the actual games. What does it mean? It means that it is too large. As large as when you put your character in it, your character looks very small. This is the Dragon Island. And then it was put in the designer island, received no texture, no nothing, and it's kind of in the oblivion. And now I'd like to tell you why it is so important for me to understand the coordinate systems of video gaming. Over time, I realized that when I understand how this coordinate system works, that gives me access to secret places. So the system is not consistent or applicable to all the games. But anyway, whenever I can, I apply it. I bought this game. I made reverse engineering. This is a theory. I will go very fast through it because I assume that we are all aware of it. We just go to the memory pages, and then this is what we find. These are the actual pages. This is the game memory. We see the address on the left up until the size, then we iterate a full page, and when we are on a new memory page, we extract the data and we interpret them like if they were floats. 4 bytes, 4 bytes, 4 bytes. As I say, interpret them as if they were bytes. Once we have that, this is the output. Some numbers look like floats. These are the coordinate vectors of the character, that is to say, this is the position of the character in the game. However, there are other numbers that are not correlated or represented in float. There are also like long numbers that are very big numbers, not represented in float. If I'm looking for the coordinate vectors of the character, I'm not going to assume that that big number is the position of the character. So this one on top left is the one that tells me about the position of the character. So then in JavaScript, I have the character on the plane, I scan the memory, and I make it go up on top of the rock. Once it is on top of the rock, I take a look at all the values that I have recovered, and I check those that have gone up. Then I filter that, and then I bring it down the rock. And then I take a look at the values that have decreased. Then I put that on an X and Y coordinate, and then up until I find a coordinate that represents the height of the character. I did that, and this is what I got. And I said, okay, I'll go to the 0, 0 coordinate to see where is the start. And I could see that it was here, bottom left. So for instance, that depends. If you are in the browsers, canvas element, they often start on top right corner, which is the 0, 0 coordinate, whereas here 0, 0 is the bottom left coordinate. Well, and let's take a look and see what's in there. So I looked at it, and this is what I found. These are the limits of the map. There is a high-resolution version, but as you move away, so we see these low-resolution elements. So apparently, you should never get to these low-resolution areas. If you go into the forest and you walk, then the character starts to speak to himself and say, oh, I'm tired, I should go back to the village, and then he starts to walk slowly. So this is a technique that they have used so that you don't reach the outside, you don't come out of the map. And then I said, okay, I just want to see what are the limits. I went to coordinate 4096, and I'm here, bottom right. If we went to 4096, 4096, we would be on top right corner. Now, bottom right corner, I found more or less the same thing, forest. But when I did this for the first time, I didn't know where Z coordinate was. I didn't know where the plane was. So sometimes that was above the level, sometimes it was above the ground, sometimes below or under the ground. And I found this. He's kind of dying. He feels that he's falling off, and that's why he's moving his arms like that. I just given instructions, and I changed the Z coordinates to prevent the character from falling down. I could find that area, I took a look at it, and I started to see those textures. So some games have structured development structures, and this is a testing area. So here we have two forgotten NPCs there. One of them is a citizen, and then the second one is a bad guy. So they do not talk to you, you cannot sell anything at them, but they are just sitting there. I understand that this is the way they distribute it or they deliver it because they assume that no one will reach that area. You can hit them if you want, but then my character gets soon tired of hitting it. And if I have an understanding of the game coordinates, I can reach or go to a specific place. If I understand those of the World of Warcraft, I can get to a secret place. And I will show you the technique that has allowed me to get to these secret places. It has a 2x2 matrix, 4096, which is kind of a magic number for video game developing, and it has kind of blocks or maps. I would refer to them as blocks as of now. So the blocks has chunks, and then they have a specific size. So it is a smaller matrix within that block, representing the geometry of the ground. What is the most relevant here is this formula on the right, math floor, and if we deliver the axis, it gives us a number. So this is the block where we are, because I wanted to edit blocks. And for me to edit a block, I need to know which block I want to edit. So that formula tells me about the X and Y of the file format of the game. So you see this path, ADT, and this is the name of the map, Azeroth 3149. This is the X coordinate. This is the whole number that I'm looking for. If I move about, you see the character. When he's closer to the city, he's at 48, and then further away from the city, 49. So the block changes as the character gets closer or further away. So the block is in front of the city, Storm City, and then I say, okay, I will remove block 49, see what happens. You see that some ground has disappeared. You can see it better now. You see a perfect square You see squares of it. And I told you before that the blocks are made up of these small chunks or tiles, 256 elements, and I say, okay, I'll give it a random position to these chunks, and then I will set them to 0 so that the ground looks flat or is flat. And then I said to myself, I will move blocks.
Last year, I developed a number of techniques to reach a place. That place was called the Game Master Island. This island is by game masters for themselves, and this is a block for them. The thing is, in the course of the years, I was finding techniques to reach that block, the King Master Island. So let's fly through the air, but they fixed that. They saw how we do it and they fixed it. So we went diving. Let's teletransport. Let's build a road. So they were fixing it. So whenever I tried to read the Game Master Island, they just fixed it. So why should I keep on trying? I just bring it to me and that's it. So then I don't have to go. This technique of moving blocks consists in, if you open the blocks in a hex file, you have a string that says NDF, I believe. The MDDF, you looked at the memory, so I found the occurrences of MDDF blocks in memory, maybe 14 in this case. The thing is that MDDF occurs in many occurrences, so anybody writes in a chat MDDF, there will be one. So I try to use another word, like, for example, blocks that have MWIDF. So then I could move, and how do I do that? It's not so easy, because what you find in the blocks are absolute positions. Someone could think, well, if you want to move a block, as before we knew the name 3149.82, you just rename it and that's it. That doesn't work exactly that way, as they have the absolute position of the elements. Even if you rename a file, the elements remain in the original place. So here we did a transformation of where the elements are to the new block in the absolute position. This 3149, these coordinates are the ones I want to go to. So I take the block in the Game Master Island and I transform everything that is in there. First, this is liquids. Here, right in front of the citadel. So I will transform the liquids, and here we see a silhouette with some water around it. Then let's see, okay, the buildings and food around it. There's the house or the palace of the King Master Island. So we do the final change on the landscape, and we no longer have to go to the King Master Island. We have it here. So in this case, you see it's like below. We have to jump because the coordinate system, in this system, the Game Master Island is under it. So this was happened when we put a cow in there, because in the original server, the client situates it, but the server has a refresh rate that sends the packages of where the characters are. This was fixed, and we no longer could move the blocks. I was totally traumatized. I said, my God, I'll never be able to reach Master Island again. So then I realized that if we make a change in the game, we change the blocks, and this is detectable. But if we in a zeppelin, in a ship, in a transport means, they cannot detect it. So then I said, okay, I'll just change the blocks, and I'll just take a ship, and I'll go on board the ship. These are maps, like half-broken maps, which are actually, this is the Emerald's Dream, which is a site in the game. So this belongs to that game. Now I will show you a video which is nostalgic, you could say. So we gave rise to an island. You can see how the island arises. Here we made a tool to visualize maps It seems to be the game, but it is not. And what you see here, this is the game. This is an air view around the volcano, because we put like a flying zeppelin. And then you say, hey, I'm going to put a tree here. So I'm building the island, I have a volcano, I put trees around. But this is not possible. You can't do that. But we did it. This is a druid who has a little box. So we changed the box by a tree, and we changed the scale of it. So then it seems like you're planting trees. The fact is, you are just putting, using this box of the druid. So this brought us a few problems. The video editor didn't like it. He thought that we were editing maps in real time. But this is total fake. Now I'd like to talk to you about the game. You're all eagerly waiting for the game. No more preludes. So it's a really fun game. They have a view in Andy's room where you have to control several characters, because Woody is very strong, but he can do many things apart from throwing you all across the room. So I was trying to control those characters. Then I used Frida, which gives a sort of an API that can be injected in an external process to put hooks on functions and examine processes. So I found a function in this memory address, a function that when it is invoked, it receives a pointer looking for the coordinates of the characters. So it can be invoked 3 times for 3 characters. You have to tell him where the coordinates of the character are. So I intercept an or enter, I believe, and then I have the X, Y, Z coordinate. So with this I can change the location of characters. I put a button, I said, look, every time I hit it, I will take it to coordinate Y, which is height on over the plane. So depending on the 3D game that you use, the coordinate system is different. So I hit the key and add to the Y coordinate. So then I raise it through the air. So then I saw that the roof of Andy's room has a collision. We can walk over the room, but outside it has no collision. So then when I left Andy's room, I just fell down. Okay, this doesn't work because I need to explore the area, not only the roof. So I spent some time looking for another technique with the mouse and both buttons, button left, button right. When I press those buttons with the right button, I make this code, the interval in JavaScript, and what it does is the camera vector, and the character, those 2 vectors, and it calculates an angle and a direction, a new vector, and the direction in which the camera is looking. So with this new direction, I can displace the character in the direction in which he's looking at. Here the character is not moving, has no animation of moving, but he is moving because we are teletransporting him in the direction in which the camera is looking at. So if the camera goes around, the character will do so too. So then I went out to explore, and I realized that Andy's room, on the one hand, on the right, you see there's a floor, there's no collision, and then there's a black room here, it's empty, it's like a part of a door almost, and then if you go under the room, there's like a reflection, so the elements reflect the other way around. So then I went out to take a stroll, and I realized that Andy's room had several windows, and the windows out of which you can look has these elements around it, like a fence, trees, and along where there is no window, there's nothing there. You see in the background there's nothing there because we are not able to look in that direction because there's no window. So I was recording the videos of this chat. So I was moving around with a character, and I find at the end like a light, a dot floating in the air. So let's see, what is this about? And it was Ham the pig. This is the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me, exploring a video game. Finding Ham the pig. He was still there, has no animation, so he was like a collision. He had a collision box around it, so I saw, what is Ham doing here? So I came in to record these videos, and when I do it, the pig wasn't there. I had taken a screenshot. Well, I have seen, to demonstrate that I had the thing. So it's not a hallucination of mine. So then I started to looking for him. Then I realized he was in one of the boxes in the room, and he was animated already. So what happens is that depending on how we use the vision, the pig is there or not. So the pig has to exist. What they what they do is they place it outside. So the physical thing is active, so he would fall. So then they put him in a box. So then he ends up in this furniture. So we will finish. I had just something to tell you, but well, I explore games. So I record cinematics at like 7 in the evening, but I didn't finish it. So then next day I go back in and record it again. But next day I come in at 12 noon. As it's not the same point in time, so here I'm recording cinematics, and I can't record this. I can't use different lighting and such. So then I said, look, I'll become like a daytime and nighttime editor. So then I just set the sun, as you can see, and I brought out the moon, so that I can establish the part of the day in which is most adequate for me. But actually this can't be done. I can't go to a game and with a mouse just pull the sun up or down. So what I'm doing here is that I'm putting a website, a web page on top of it. This is a transparent background. You can see what's behind it. What we have behind it is the game. So when I go into the game, I'm clicking on a transparent page, and I drag the document up and down to determine whether I'm going up or down. And in that way, I change the background. It's a random tool I had, which I just wanted to show you. And with this, I finish. I'm very grateful to be here in RootedCON talking with you about that. So I've gone beyond my time in 50 seconds exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have these stickers you see here, like a souvenir of the chat. I don't know if you have any questions. No, I would rather have a sticker, thank you. Really nice, very entertaining. Questions, you have to queue up behind the mics.
Yo estoy... Madre mía. ¿Cuántas horas lleva el debuguear esto?
I'm still awestruck. How much time has this taken? Well, many years. I've been 15 years in tools. Now, by the time I make my own tools by now, have you ever thought about placing a framework for people to extend it? There are some things of that sort around there. I have a container that's robo.js, I believe it said. Now we have people who maintain it. We don't have many collaborators here, so anyway. Any question? I'll be here, around here. Also, you can Twitter me. So anyway, thank you very much, Carlos. Really impressive.